Just the privacy notice. We will be recording this. There is the GDPR to observe. If you guys can just pop in the comments that you agree to the GDPR, that would be fantastic. This will be recorded just because we tend to record these things really, but it's more for posterity and so that we can review it later on if need be. So onto our agenda. We've got student feedback on the portal, course resources, feedback, communication and information, online learning, quality of teaching, curriculum content, exams and assignments, placements and work experience, personal academic tutor support, and AOB. So if anyone wants to start us off with the student feedback for the portal.
I don't think anyone. I don't mind kind of just kicking off. I'd be interested to know because I've seen it in its kind of overview. I've seen and looked at it, and it looks quite interesting. I'd be interested to know how it's working in operation, how it's functioning. I don't know, Brett, whether I know you're the chair, but if I could ask you, maybe you could feedback, and I'm sure that may well encourage some others to kind of join in and offer some feedback.
Yeah, so I met with my programme sort of leader a few weeks ago, and we did have difficulties with the portal itself. We were trying to input the feedback and the actions during the meeting, and it was throwing up errors and stuff. I'm not sure if that was just a kink in the, in the system that day, or if anyone else has experienced similar. In terms of usability on the portal, it to me feels like a work in development kind of thing. It would be nice if we could, instead in this kind of a convoluted way that you sign into it, it'd be nice if it was actually accessible from our student representative kind of portal. Because it's not all on there, or maybe even from UDO itself. Yeah, I'm not sure what other people have experienced themselves or what other students have said about it. Like I say, I've not really had much feedback on the portal use itself. But yeah, I'm happy to throw that over to you if anyone's got any more sort of comments.
So, I'm Janet Miller. I'm the college team leader for Arts, Humanities and Education. So my team officer the programme committees, and I suppose from our point of view is there has been a few programme committees taking place, although they have been knocked back because due to graduation. I know they've been I think two. I think they're been held in Humanities and Journalism already. And the feedback from them around the programme committees is that it's been quite positive. So they have not flagged that there's been any issues around the student portal, but I have been asking for feedback from the officers as they come out of those committees, and if there is any issues, I will obviously feedback those issues.
Okay. In terms of getting the student reps to feedback on the portal, how are people finding that sort of side of it? Because we're trying to get as many programme reps as possible to use the portal and to provide regular sort of feedback. So I'm just wondering if there's been any issues with that or anything highlighted in that sort of way.
I mean, I wonder whether there's any academic colleagues who's had experience of the portal, or are we in a bit of a lag here? We're waiting for these because of the programme committees. I think I'm seeing some nods, but Alistair?
Yeah, I think it's relatively early days. This is it's a new system, new programme committees which are being held. I'm not aware of any difficulties or problems. I've seen some student comments coming through already, so the system appears to be working, but it just seems early days. Just to reiterate Janet's point, I don't think anything significant has emerged through the rep meetings in advance of the programme committees in my school. I don't know about the other schools.
Okay, I think that might be everything for the student feedback on the portal element, unless anyone else wants to add anything before we move on. I'll take the silence and lack of hand waving as a no, so let's move on to the next item. So this is on course resources. So general feedback I've been sort of receiving on course resources is more to do with sort of accessing it. A lot of, like Microsoft introduced the two-step verification thing, and a lot of people are not really happy about that because it asks for confirmation all the time and it's kind of inconvenient. In terms of course resources itself, we've had discussions about library use. We've been sort of umming and ahhing about the 24-hour library, whether it would be worth doing it because usage has been down. I'm not sure in terms of feedback what students are wanting in terms of course resources. We've not received a ton of feedback on it, particularly on my programme. We didn't receive a lot of feedback on the course resources elements. I'm not sure what you guys are experiencing and what's been coming out of the PCM and general sort of feedback sessions with student reps. Yeah, Alistair?
Just to let you know, I'm sure colleagues are aware, and I'm sure students are as well, that the arrangements for 24/7 library opening have been put in place, and it's almost the same as last year. It's just been refined based on usage stats, so that's fully in place. With regard to Blackboard use and things around that, they're all staff colleagues, I think 92% of relevant staff colleagues have done the updated staff development training around how to ensure consistent use of Blackboard, etc. All of that seems to have been going quite well, and across the college, a number of programs have, as per last year, have been selected to have what's known as a digital baselines assurance review to ensure that all of that is being implemented consistently and well. I've seen the very, very early results. It came through yesterday, which indicated nearly everything is in the green, which means that basically it seems to be going quite well, and very, very few issues have been raised. There are some additional suggested staff development opportunities being planned around how we can perhaps share good practice and improve lecture recording, where it's perhaps on practice-based sessions, studio sessions and so on, how we can improve that. But the evidence that we get as academics, I think, show that the course resources in Blackboard appears to be running pretty well.
Yeah, I think I have to agree. I've not heard any sort of negative feedback really as far as the course resources. So yeah, I think it's working as it should, and a lot of students are finding it relatively easy to find what they need. Yeah.
Brett, if I may, if I just come back on the two-step verification. I mean, this is really about kind of protecting our data, and I think we all, you know, staff and students, we all have to go through this process now. I know if you're using multiple machines, it can be problematic because you repeatedly have to do it. If you have your own machine, I think that there is an element of where you don't have to do that as frequently. It is being rolled out, I'm aware, you know, right across the sector, just for the challenge in terms of to protect our data and protect the university's networks, but also personal networks as well. So I think that's why it's there. Yeah, it's just one of those additional hurdles we have to jump through or jump over.
Yeah, I believe it's just being rolled out sort of sector-wide, sort of anything to do with online and data sort of usage. So it's just something we'll have to get used to, I think. Is there anyone else who has any more comments about course resources and its use this semester? If not, we'll move on to our next item. Okay, so our next item is communication and information. So I think this element really is about how we're finding, communicating with the cohort. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by end information, but is there anyone who has anything to comment on this sort of topic? I do have a message being typed in the comments, so I'll just wait for that to come through. So in terms of communicating, I don't know if any of you guys have any feedback in terms of communication and information as a topic. Like I say, I'm not sure what's meant on this slide, to be honest. If not, we can move on to online learning, which is our next topic. Yeah. Okay, I'll move on to online learning. So my experience of online learning this semester has been kind of extensive, really. I've done a bit of it sort of myself, but I have been attending face-to-face lectures. I know a lot of the international students, particularly in the early weeks, were online learning. They found it kind of difficult to integrate with the hybrid sort of sessions, just because it's, you know, it's a lecturer trying to manage two sort of cohorts, really. You've got your face-to-face and your online. We are hearing from other schools that the face-to-face element of learning still sort of recovering. A lot of students are still not really attending lectures. They're preferring the online method. I'm just wondering if anyone's got anything that they're willing to talk about in terms of feedback on the online sort of aspects. Yes, Alistair?
Yes, just from humanities and journalism point of view, I think the overwhelming feeling we get from students through the programme leaders in particular, but also heads of discipline, is that the vast majority of students in this area are very happy to be back on campus face-to-face teaching. The socialisation element is much better. The student experience is better. And certainly on the modules that I've been delivering on myself and the modules I know about, we found really quite good and not very dissimilar attendance and engagement from pre-pandemic levels. So you get the normal slight decline as students are beginning to panic about assessments around about week 8, week 9. But even on independent study research methods classes, in some cases we've had 100% attendance. So I'm not aware of anything to worry about. And we've seen a bit of evidence to suggest that some students like online learning. They like getting up in their pajamas and doing it remotely at home. And I suspect you'll always get that. But the majority of the feedback that we've had is that students are enjoying being back on campus. And engagement and attendance seem at normal levels, I would have said.
Okay, and Matt.
Excuse me. Yeah, I would endorse Alistair's comments as well. I think that one of the things I would say is that I think we need to also understand the diversity of our cohort involved here as well. There's, a significant percentage of students who are commuter, have other employments and other things alongside, and therefore find the online very useful in terms of their interactions with it. I don't think we're talking online only for a start. I mean, I don't think anyone is suggesting, I'm not hearing any feedback that suggests that there's any desire to move to online only teaching, which will be very difficult in arts anyway. But I think actually the way that online activities integrate, not so much in the hybrid situation, because I think actually it's not about, I would agree with you, Brett. I think the managing two cohorts simultaneously is very difficult. Although actually we have put some resource into it in arts, in some of the design areas, into trying to enable a more flexible studio approach. However, I think doing those cohorts simultaneously is a problem, but I think understanding the way that the online interacts with, in our case, the studio activity is really important in terms of underpinning a kind of good, consistent student experience and setting a baseline for that student experience as well. And certainly where we have distinctive online activities rather than the usual, I argue as the kind of the default, where we've had to do something we would have done face to face, we're doing online for all kinds of reasons. We're seeing quite a lot of appreciation for that and very positive response to it. So I think it's quite a complex picture. And I think it's, in this instance, I'd say we do need to have a sense of the diversity of our student cohorts.
Yeah, I have to concur. In the creative writing sort of cohort, we're more face-to-face than anything. We do have a few online sort of learning aspects, but they're more extra sort of curricular as opposed to do with our program sort of core like learning. So I think a lot of students are really enjoying sort of being back in a classroom and face-to-face. If anybody else would like to add any more comments.
If I may, it's also important to remember, we are, we're applied university, a lot of what we do requires that face-to-face, and that is our commitment in terms of where we are as a university. And we worked incredibly hard at the tail end of last academic year to return to campus, and so far I think we've managed it really well as a university, and some other universities haven't quite done that as well, or they've been maybe a little bit more adverse to return to campus. And I think certainly being back on campus, engaging in the specialist resources and kit, and obviously working with the tutors has also been, I know, positively received by students.
Okay. So if no one else has any more to add, we'll move on to our next topic. So that is quality of teaching. In terms of my cohort, I'm seeing people generally quite happy with the quality of teaching. People are generally happy with being back on campus and then the face-to-face elements. We do a lot of workshopping and things like that. We're quite diverse sort of teaching methods. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of positivity, particularly around the teaching aspects of the arts and humanities courses. If anyone would like to comment or add any feedback of their own, please feel free. Okay, doesn't look like anyone's got anything that they'd like to add. One thing I will say is that there was some trepidation from students about the quality of teaching as we return to face-to-face. But personally, I don't think that there's been sort of any major decline. In fact, I think the teaching quality's got better as we've returned to classrooms as opposed to being online. Last year there was a bit of a decline from that loss of sort of classroom taught sessions. So I think students are really happy with where we're at the moment, and I think we're progressing quite nicely towards sort of what students expected when they learned that we were returning to classrooms. So if nobody else has got any more comments or anything, we'll just move along to the curriculum content aspect of the forum. So in terms of the curriculum content, I believe students are generally happy with what we're covering. Everything seems to interlink particularly well in the creative writing sort of core. I'm not sure about your other subject areas, but if anyone would like to comment on sort of feedback they've received, please feel free.
If there's no student comments, maybe colleagues from the individual schools institute could just reflect on what they've had from the staff and whether there's been any things raised, any modifications in planning in terms of just reflecting on the recent experience. Sarah, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I mean, the staff are incredibly proactive at revising the curriculum content in line with changes in the education sector. As I'm sure colleagues can appreciate, one whole area of the IOE, particularly, well, I'm talking specifically about the initial teacher training side. We are dictated to by recent initiatives such as the core content framework, which is now mandatory for all IT providers to adhere to. They say it's not a curriculum, but it is a framework. But essentially, there's certain aspects of teaching we have to cover, and that sort of is linked into our pending Ofsted inspection. But beyond the IT side, across education full stop, our curriculum is decided very much by the government initiatives we have to follow, legislation, of course. So when keeping safe, documentation changes, safeguarding content changes, and I think students are pretty receptive to the need for those changes so that their degree stays current and supports their employability. So at the moment, I've not had any negative feedback brought to me about the curriculum content within the IOE. That's not to say it's not there at present, but it's not been brought to me. So at the moment, I'm saying it's a positive picture out there on this basis.
Okay, thank you for that. If Matt would like to go next.
Yeah, happy to. I think in terms of curriculum content, I mean, obviously we undertake an ongoing iterative review of stuff. So we're always looking at what we do. There's been quite a lot of change in the school, so I think it's also another good opportunity to look at what we do, and we're engaging in that with staff. We've just undertaken a program leader-led sort of review of our activity as well, just to kind of make sure that just make sure we're properly aligned, that we're drawing on all the right information, that we're properly geared up for industry, for research and all the other demands that come in, and indeed as well as, but in terms of drawing in student feedback. So that's a process will be an ongoing process that we're just going to keep in mind all the time. And I think that, you know, programs are living, breathing things. You know, we are constantly looking at them. We're constantly reviewing content, and we constantly seek to maintain improvement as well. And I think that continual improvement approach is really important. So that's very much a centre of what we're doing at school level. We've had quite a lot of changes into the curriculum post the university portfolio review as well. So some of that is having impacts as well, and we're looking at the curricula in that light too. Yeah, I think that's kind of covers sort of where we're at a very sort of general level. Those other things would come through at a more discipline and program level as well. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you for that. Alistair, if you have any comment?
The short answer is that there's very little change being contemplated right now. There are a few minor modifications possibly going through. They tend to be mainly administrative with relation to elements of programs phasing out and new ones phasing in that were implemented as part of a portfolio review. It has relatively little effect to the nature of the curriculum. So there's relatively little happening at the moment. There may be changes afoot in the next year or so, but relatively little going on at the moment.
Okay. In terms of, because last year we introduced a lot of new programs into the Arts and Humanities sort of college. How's that sort of going curriculum-wise, Alistair?
Yeah, just to follow on. I mean, yes, there were a number of programs that were, well, one program in Humanities that was revalidated fully. That was history. Other programs were merged where we took the opportunity to streamline, to update, and to modify the curricula. That was done across all three stages of study, and most of those new programs are phasing in. So in a sense, the curricula are all relatively new, and we're just implementing that on a gradual process. So level 4 this year, level 5 next year. So that's the reason that we're not seeing many changes at the moment. Any new programs at postgraduate level, those are going well so far. The only one that is really phased in with students is the new MA journalism, which seems to be going very well. So yeah, that's it from our school.
Okay, Alistair, thanks for the update. Anyone else have anything they would like to add to our curriculum content such aspect to this forum? If not, we can move on to our next item, I think. Okay, so our next item is on exams and assignments. I did have a couple of feedback elements from students on exams and assignments. One of them was to do with our independent study sort of module. We had an assignment week 1, which kind of shocked and, you know, caused a lot of anxiety amongst the students. I'm not sure if that's going to be sort of adjusted in future. I did bring it up at my program leader sort of meeting, and she said that we'd certainly be looking at it. I'm not sure if anyone's got anything they have to comment on the exam side of things. Yeah, Alistair?
Just on that very specific point, I don't know the detail. I would be amazed if that was a graded assessment, but if it was, then I'll certainly go back and talk to the program leaders about that. That's an MA Creative Writing. Which module was it?
So that was a formative assessment for the independent study. Yeah, that was it was week one. We were basically giving it about 5 minutes into the first lecture and told it needed to be in like week two, and it caught a lot of people off guard.
Okay, I mean, again, without knowing the detail, but that will quite often be done in order to assess prior knowledge at postgraduate level. Because what we tend to find at postgraduate level is that some students may have done creative writing, in your case, at undergrad, but other people might be converting from something else. Perhaps they did English or perhaps they did maths at undergrad. So to establish a baseline of prior knowledge and awareness so that the module itself can be set up properly. So that's completely appropriate. If it happened and took people off guard, we can take that away as a learning point, but it's not graded. It's done for that purpose.
Yep, certainly. So in terms of exams and assignments generally, I think sort of the cohort as a whole are finding things relatively easy to find. Timeframes, you know, sort of, I'd say they're quite generous across arts and humanities at times. So I think people are getting plenty of time to do what they need to do and get plenty of information on the assignments themselves. I don't know if anybody has anything to add from their own sort of PCMs and colleges. Yep, Sarah?
It's really just to preempt a potential issue or feedback, really. Colleagues around the table will be aware that within our primary ITE team, we have been functioning for a number of weeks now on about 50% staff. We've had 9 members of staff off at once, which is unprecedented for a range of different reasons. But it does mean that we have had to consult with Russ Langley, and hopefully the programme leaders have done this with the Union of Students, because we are having to push back some marking release dates because the staff are absent who have taught that module at the point at which the work was submitted. We've had to make a decision whether to push those dates back or to bring in ALs to mark. And based on past experience, students haven't really favoured associate lecturers who are disengaged from the module marking. So I just wanted really for colleagues and people around the table to be aware that we have had to move to that practice. And I hope that we have the student support for the decision that was taken. It will mean a slight delay on their return date, but if anything comes to you, that's sort of like the background to the reason as to why.
Okay, thank you for that. I think from a student perspective, the most valuable thing to do is to just communicate with them over that issue. We had an instance last year on the gaming pathway where there was a 5-week delay between sort of a mark being turned around. It caused a lot of anxiety because there was no communication. So I think that's key, sort of from the student side of things, just to communicate, just to make it clear that marks will be incoming and that you've got the situation in hand.
Completely agree. That's when it starts to break down, isn't it, when people don't know? So we've got the student engagement team supporting us on that. Thank you.
Yes, certainly. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments on the exams and assignments sort of section? Yes, Alistair?
So it's just really for information, really, over the course of the next few months and possibly this year, I think there will be a re-evaluation, partly because of what will become the new learning teaching framework, but also around work that we're doing around the attainment gap and equity and diversity for students, around assessment practices, and that may introduce some improvements, some enhancements over the next year or two. just for context.
Okay, thank you for that, Alistair. So in terms of sort of exams and assignments, do anyone have any other comments they'd like to add before we move on to the next subject? Okay, I'll take the silence to mean that we can move on. So placements and work experience. I'm not sure how much of this necessarily applies to arts and humanities. I know in my own sort of course, the work experience aspect was phased out because of the pandemic. So I'm not sure how applicable this topic necessarily is. Yes, Sarah?
From an education point of view, and again, particularly from the ITE point of view, I can see David smiling because placements are our bread and butter of our programme, considering some of our students have to do 24 weeks minimum a year in school, leaving only between 8 and 10 weeks in university. We know that there are issues in terms of securing placements this year. And at the start of the year, and particularly last academic year, school settings were very keen to have our students as key workers. We have started to notice a bit of a change in that this year as we've tried to secure placements. At the moment, all of our cohorts who have been due in school since September have started their placement on time. However, we are now hitting a period of time where we've got increasing number of placements required, for example, with our BEd Year 2 and MEdU students. The team are working to secure those placements, but I just really wanted to stress again, so particularly from a student perspective, if this does come to you, no school has a legal responsibility or duty to offer placements to our students. So much of many of the placements are found on goodwill and the relationship we have. The DFE are so concerned by the lack of offer of placements for ITE programmes nationwide. I have only yesterday received a survey from the DFE asking us how desperate the situation is, because nationally they're being told by universities and other IT providers that they are struggling to place the students on professional programmes. Now, touch wood, the Derby team are doing a great team, but I just wanted to flag it's not an easy job, and sometimes we do have students who complain about travel time. We have a remit of 1 hour and 30 minutes travel time, and we are adhering to that as it currently stands. But I'm afraid some students this year may be required to travel. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. That's good to know. Like I say, I deal mainly with postgraduate students. I'm yet to sort of get anyone sort of talking about work experience and work placements. But that is definitely something I can sort of let them know if that issue does arise. So thank you for that. Okay, so Matt, if you'd like to go next.
Yeah, I mean, ours is a very different context to Sarah's, but it's critically important nonetheless. So actually the embedded work experience in our programmes, I mean, it varies across the school. I can speak mainly about design, but where it is embedded in all our programmes, and increasingly placement activity is available as an option, and that's been quite an important commitment to make, to say that students have the opportunity to undertake a placement. That's not the easiest thing to deliver, because actually there are a lot of restrictions on doing it. We don't have the same kinds of restrictions that education do, but However, there are health and safety, there are all other kinds of checks and balances that we need to ensure that this activity is properly rolled out. And our intention is to roll that out across the school as well, so that we have a consistent approach to it, and that we're providing appropriate support for placement activity as well, for those students who wish to do it and where there is a placement opportunity available. In terms of work experience, again, and actually this is embedded very heavily again across the school, but I'll speak to design as well, but and design PG, where actually we've formally embedded it in all activities of the postgraduate framework in design. So there's a whole series of design labs which are live experiences with external stakeholders. That's well, we're just starting those at the moment, but so far it's been very successful. I'm absolutely delighted in the way it's been implemented. And again, we'll look to extend that across the school. So it's a key part of our teaching and learning strategy in the school to ensure that this activity is embedded not just as the formal commitment at level 5 of 30 hours, but actually as part of a core program philosophy that runs throughout all levels, including foundation level. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Alistair, if you would like to go next.
Yes, the conversation so far quite rightly has focused upon in-programme placements and work experience. There is another initiative as well, which is new for 21-22, and that is the Placement Academy. And as people were talking, I was just trying to find the link so I could put it into the chat. This is for year-long placements, so it's something that is we're actively seeking level 4 and level 5 students to come forward with expressions of interest on that. If I can find the link, I'll pop it into the chat.
Okay, thank you. So if anybody else has anything they'd like to add while we're still on placements and work experience, please feel free. Otherwise, we can move on to our next topic. Okay, so our next topic is PAT support, so personal academic support. So from a student perspective, sort of my cohort's been sort of engaging in PAT support, both online and in person. I think we're due to have our second meetups sort of next week. Most students have found it really helpful. Generally, feedback's positive. I'd like to throw it open to the floor, see if anyone's got anything they'd like to sort of add and comment.
Just wonder, Brett, whether just as we did before, maybe if we could just go round just briefly to the school stroke institute to see if there's been any kind of feedback from kind of personal academic tutors in terms of the process. But my understanding is that allocations, how all students should have a PAT. There may be one or two gaps sometimes, some things don't quite land, but I think we're all in a good place. But just generally, Matt, I think you're ready to speak.
Yeah, we're I mean it's happening. I think it's early again. It's a bit like the student feedback. I think it's early to comment on how effective it has been at its implementation. I mean, it is implemented for sure. All students have a PAT. PAT tutorials are taking place. Certainly, I'm getting lots of feedback that is happening. As to how that is working for students and the issues arising from it, I think that's something that will come in due course. I think we just need to have some more effective means of drawing that out and ensuring that those things are taking place. I'm aware that that staff are being that students are being appropriately signposted to the wellbeing services. I think that's working very well, except for in one area where it happens to be the staff are all therapists, so I probably where there is a need for some intervention to ensure that the signposting is happening and that the issues that students are facing are not being addressed solely in-house, if you like, in the programme. So that's one area, that's one issue that has come up. But outside of that, I think it's working as effectively as it should.
Okay. So Sarah, would you like to give any feedback?
Thank you. I believe it's all going well. We've had a challenge in that due to over recruitment, we had an extra 40 students on one of our undergrad programmes, and the team have managed to ensure that everybody does have a personal and academic tutor. Again, the ITE side is a little bit different. We actually call them professional and personal academic tutors on that side. We're trying to work with the pedagogic practice team because we recognise some of the timings and content of the PAT system doesn't always necessarily work at the point of need for those on professional placement, but that's an ongoing thing, and the students themselves haven't really picked that up as a major issue. So I'm hoping this year, you know, everybody remains happy with the support and the communication from their PPATs, as we call them, despite again some of those staff absences, because we've had to reallocate some students to other members of staff as an interim measure. So not a straightforward one for us this year because of the challenges we find ourselves in, but I'm happy that students are getting what they need when they need it and they're being signposted appropriately. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, Sarah. Again, I think if just communicating with the students when those alterations need to be made, just make sure everyone's aware of the situation and are happy with it. Alistair, if there's anything you'd like to add?
I'm a great fan of the personal academic tutoring system. All students have them. The uptake of the meetings can be variable. So I would always urge any student rep to encourage all students to avail themselves of the opportunities. They are genuinely useful. From my own university days, I remember those kind of one-to-one tutorial meetings as being among the most valuable hours I spent at university. So really it's going back to students to say, please do engage with it, please do attend both individual and group sessions. The other comment I'd make is around postgraduate taught, and that is that when the personal academic tutoring system was first installed, it didn't extend to postgraduate taught. Within humanities and journalism, we did implement a parallel system for postgraduate taught, so it has been running for several years. And we've sort of gone beyond the strict number of hours that we're meant to do at postgraduate taught level. So I think this year we'll be gathering feedback as to how that has gone from students. We at postgraduate taught level, we're very keen to maintain the very good level of student experience. We've got 100% in PTES on all of the reporting programs in humanities, so we're very keen to retain that, and we do regard the personal academic tutoring system as a key component of that.
Okay, thank you. I think from one of the students who's a postgraduate in sort of arts, humanities and education, I think I can concur that the students are finding it really useful. Like I say, we're about to have our second meetups of sort of the semester next week. My general feedback from students has been, you know, positive. A lot of students are finding it really clear sort of what they need to achieve, you know, what they need to do to achieve the marks they want and are aiming for, and the PAT system's really helping them sort of realise that and, you know, put plans in place and work on their own individual stuff. So yeah, if anyone would like to add anything else to the discussion on the PAT system, feel free to raise your hand or just do a comment. Otherwise, we can move on to our next topic. Okay, so our next topic is AOB, which I'm not actually sure what that means. So, Matt?
Is any other business that which wasn't the question? I think it's useful for us to have a conversation at this stage about student engagement in this forum, and just what are the issues. I mean, obviously, first of all, I want to say, I'm sure on behalf of all of us, thank you for chairing, and thank you for taking the front with this. It's been very, very beneficial. But I think actually it also highlights the fact that it's not a complete picture of our representative body, and maybe that's something we should have a conversation about how, just actually for the future forums, how we better ensure the throughput of representation into this meeting. So I wanted to float that as an AOB discussion.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for your kind words. I was only actually put in place to co-chair this yesterday. So yeah, there has been a bit of an engagement issue, I think, from the union side. I've been trying to engage students myself in other projects. Alistair will tell you that I'm running a anthology for students this semester. I'm trying to get that published in the summer. So I'm trying to engage students in all different sort of aspects. But in terms of the university,
can you tell us a bit more about the anthology? Sorry, you just piqued my interest, so I figured I'd just segue away from the agenda item to actually.
So I originally floated the idea because I did a similar project at Nottingham University about 10 years ago. And the idea was that we'd get the creative writing students to submit pieces, publishing students to publish and edit, and some art students to do artwork and illustrations. And then we'd try and publish it in the summer, maybe even hold a launch event. And this idea was basically to give us another method of getting like employability skills to develop our CVs as creative people, venturing out into the world. It's just generally a great project to be involved in. Like I say, I've done something prior.
I mean, my interest is piqued slightly because it aligns to one of our school projects, which is about publishing student work. We're very aware that at the end of the year, we have shows for, if you like, the creative work that's the creative visual work, films, illustrative work and other things. And actually, there's a body of work that students undertake. It's principally critical stuff, actually, for us, but and critical writing. Actually, I've got a member of staff tasked with leading this, and then linking in also to university undergraduate journal projects as well. So thank you for sharing that. And actually, if you wanted to reach out, then I think one of the things we can do is to ensure that what you're doing is foregrounded in terms of the end of year creative shows, and also I can hook you up with our colleague who's leading on that project as well. So it might be, and then I think also we can link in our areas where students can usefully support as well. So
that would be a really useful thing to do, and maybe kind of, as say, Matt, touch base with Brett outside and just kind of make a connection, because I think there's real value there. Just to go back to the point of engagements, I think maybe it's probably not the best forum to talk about engagement because actually I think we need to probably, maybe the suggestion is that with terms of the CMT, the college management team, meet with representatives from the Union of Students to look at what we need to do and how we kind of better promote this. But also, I think, take Sarah's point that actually at this point in time, there's many of the students are out on placements, so we're missing a considerable amount of students who I'm sure would be would offer comments and be fairly vocal in terms of reporting back on a number of the issues we talked today. And at the moment, we're just missing that. So I think there's probably an action on between the union students and the college just to arrange a meeting with the CMT and the union students to look at how we kind of maximise the engagement in such forums. But again, I would just reiterate Matt's point, Brett. You did a really good job chairing this, and particularly as it only landed on your desk or lap yesterday. So well done.
Thank you. Yep, sir. I would also add that we've been seeing across the entire university that like programme reps are still unappointed in some areas. So there is a student engagement sort of issue from our side, and we have also several student officer positions still unfilled, and we only filled 2 or 3 at our scrutiny panel the other week as well. Matt, are you wanting to add anything? Just because you're unmuted.
I mean, I know there are some gaps in the school which we need to look at, but I think I take David's point. I think actually it's useful to have a sort of joint college management team meeting to kind of look at this engagement question.
Okay. David, do you want to add anything?
No, I think just to reiterate, colleagues, thanks for colleagues' contributions, and just again to yourself just for kind of chairing. So thank you.
So I just have a message in the chat from Keith. He says, yes, that is a problem for us. We have cohorts where nobody really wants to be a rep, and the vast majority of our reps have not registered with the union. We have spoken to them, but several times, but I think that is an issue. I think the new rep system I don't think it's really been fully explained to the new reps. We do have a lot of returning reps that, like, for example, don't want to attend the rep training, which we run. So I think that's kind of an issue as well, engaging with new reps and returning reps just to do the training and to learn about the new portal and the way things are happening sort of this year, with us moving to a different way of doing the PCMs, for example. In terms of the wider sort of issue, we are trying to engage with the individual colleges just to ensure that, yeah, those students are being represented, and those programs without a rep are trying to actively recruit one. Yes, Alistair?
Just on the general point, I'm fully supportive of the new, I can never remember if it's student representation policy or the academic. I think it's student representation policy. There is a new system for programme committees. There is a new system where reps meet with programme leaders before programme committees. There's this forum. The whole system is relatively new. Unfortunately, as you've rightly said, the number of students who have come forward to be reps is significantly down on previous years, and we're not quite sure why. I know the Union of Students is taking significant steps to try and rectify that. What I think the net effect has been is that programme committees have not seen the number of issues coming forward that we normally would from students. That's good in a certain sense, in that quite often what we did talk about at programme committees tended to be the buses and things like that, which are not entirely relevant to the meeting. But nevertheless, in some cases, we found the programme committee meetings have been a bit sparse of student voice. And I do draw the distinction between student voice and student representation. We're very, very keen at every meeting of all staff and programme committees to have a really vibrant, full, rich, objective student voice. So I think this year, where we've got relatively few student reps, a new programme committee agenda and structure, we will need to review and reflect upon whether we're actually getting that richness of student voice coming forward. So I think that may actually be a useful topic of conversation for the next student forum.
Yes, certainly. We do have sort of forums and stuff later on today happening. I believe, yep, it's on the next slide. So yeah, we have a student forum at 3 o'clock. So that is something that I can definitely bring up with them there. In terms of sort of what we're doing as a union, it's just important for us to continue to work with the individual colleges and programme leaders to try and, you know, plug those gaps and to recruit students who, you know, want to get involved and want to engage with their cohorts and provide meaningful sort of feedback to us and ultimately to you and the university. I think this process is a very important one. It's important for us to, you know, safeguard the quality of the teaching and try and enhance it where we can. And to preserve sort of the quality for future cohorts as well. So yes, I think that is more or less it, unless anybody has any more business that they'd like to bring up. Any other topics? Otherwise, we do have a comment in the chat, just typing away, so just give Janet a minute.
All I was going to say was thank you very much. That's all I was going to say.
Okay, thank you for that, Janet. So, yep, we will move on to the last few slides. So just thanking you all for attending today's college forum. We do have a couple of activities this afternoon. We have the EEC forum at 1, student forum at 3, and then we're doing a social this afternoon in B125. I best get in my car at some point and drive up to Ked Road, I think. It sounds like it'll be fun. So, yeah, thank you all for attending, and I think we can end it there. Okay, thanks.